I'd like to call the Zoning Board of Appeals meeting to order. By way of introduction, I'll briefly explain the purpose of the Zoning Board of Appeals to the audience. The city has adopted a set of zoning ordinances. If a property owner or applicant wishes relief from a portion of the zoning ordinance, an appeal from an administrative decision, or an interpretation by the zoning ordinance text, state law provides an avenue of review through the Zoning Board of Appeals. Unlike a decision by the Planning Commission that must be approved or can be overturned by the City Commission, the decision by the Board of Zoning Appeals is final. There is no review or opportunity for overturning by the City Commission. The Michigan Zoning Enabling Act provides that Section 606(3), an appeal for a decision of a Zoning Board of Appeals shall be filed within 30 days after the Zoning Board of Appeals issues its decision, in writing, signed by the chairperson, if there is a chairperson, or signed by the members of the Zoning Board of Appeals. If there is no chairperson, or within 21 days after the Zoning Board of Appeals approve the minutes of its decision, the court may affirm, reverse, or modify the decision of the Zoning Board of Appeals. The court may make other orders as justice requires. Okay, we have minutes that need to be approved from the 24th of July. Do I hear a motion?
Yeah, I can make a motion to approve the minutes from the 24th of July.
Second.
Okay. Supported by Randy, second by Roger. Minutes are approved. Okay, we also have a provision for public comment. This provision is made to encourage the expression of questions or concerns regarding non-public hearing items and issues not on the agendas. Speakers are asked to identify themselves by name and address. A maximum of 6 minutes per person is required.
If I could jump in and
Sure.
make a couple of general comments. Just as a introductory matter, our chair is back after a little bit of medical time away, and we're glad to see him here. But the vice chair will be taking on the role of chair for tonight's meeting for purposes of reading motions and keeping the meeting on track. But we welcome Bob back, so it's good to see you, Bob.
Glad to be back.
Good. We also have.
Thank you for your cards and your.
Yeah, it's good to see you. So we also have 2 new members. Craig Taish left a couple months ago after the last meeting, as you remember, and we also had a vacancy from Scott Funk going over to our Planning Commission. He's going to be a good addition there. But just to keep things level and not to have one person wearing too many hats, we needed to fill that role of vacancy on the ZBA and keep his role separate on the Planning Commission. So we're fortunate to have really good talent here. We have 2 new board members, Mariel Versluis and Rose. I'm going to abominate your last name the way you pronounce it.
Everyone does.
So it's good to have Mariel and Rose here. So they'll be jumping right in through the voting roll tonight, and I'll walk through the application so everybody in the audience and everybody up here kind of understands what the role of this board is.
You know, we've had a lot of members of this board go to the planning commission over the years, so it's kind of nice. So, yeah.
The minor leagues.
Yeah, the minor leagues, we get them ready, right?
Those both.
What happens with the old dogs? How come the old dogs are still here?
Are both
Well, me
voting
and Roger, we
tonight?
don't know any better. No.
Are they both voting?
They're both voting, yeah,
Okay.
because we're down 2 regular members.
Okay. Good. Okay. Applicant for 211 Pheasant here. Okay. The applicant and owner, Robin Blakesley, seeks a dimensional variance to construct a plus or minus 604 square foot addition to the side of an existing plus or minus 1,757 square foot home with the existing plus or minus 600 square foot attached garage, which encroaches to within 9 feet of the side lot line, contrary to section 94, 188A of the Walker zoning ordinance, which requires a 10-foot minimum side yard setback for A-zone properties. The subject property is located at 211 Pheasant Avenue Northwest and is zoned A, single-family residential. The applicant has provided the following findings of fact for his request. Under the exceptional, extraordinary circumstances, that there are exceptional or extraordinary circumstances or conditions applying to the property in question as to the intended use of the property that do not apply generally to other properties in the same zoning district. The applicant's response was the width of the garage is designed for minimal dimensions to house a boat which would otherwise be stored in the side yard. Preservation rights, that such a variance is necessary for the preservation and enjoyment of substantial property rights similar to that possessed by other properties in the same zoning district and in the same vicinity. The possibility of increased financial return shall not itself be deemed sufficient to warrant a variance. Applicant's response was that there are two separate businesses that would like to be, no. Did I mix them up? Did I mix it up? Okay.
Response is probably also, if that's incorrect.
Okay.
It's also in the back of the packet.
Okay,
Okay.
all right. I apologize, I got a lot of papers and they got mixed up over here, so. Okay, so,
Just run that to their comments for the reasons and grounds.
okay, being that the proposed garage is not a living space and will be used for storage, we request that the variance be approved. The exterior will tie into the existing home and roof and will also be integrated using the same materials. The immediate neighbor was granted a variance to encroach within 6 foot. No detriment, the proposed garage addition meets all construction standards and is designed to enhance the neighborhood. It would be less desirable to park it exposed in the existing side yard. Not a general problem. The addition meets all standards and will not have any impact on the immediate neighbor's house to the north at 2132 Pheasant Avenue. Okay, that being said, does the applicant like to say something? Come up. Or do you want to, let me go to Dan first and, yep.
That's fine.
I'm sorry.
Quick,
I got kind of
quick introduction. I don't have extensive slides tonight or anything, so I'll try to make this as quick as possible. But and this is Mr. Whitkin here representing the applicant. Okay. So before we jump into the case by the applicant, I will just talk about some of the background of this site and how we navigate a dimensional variance request like this. This is about as typical as you can get with something the ZBA reviews. I think you've had kind of some curveballs this year with some interpretation items and judge similar requests for judging the similarity of land use. This is really more of a typical variance request where somebody's requesting to extend into a side yard setback. And we've had a number of those in the past. But with every case, you have to look at it uniquely, and I will walk through some of the things that I've noted about this case with respect to the 4 questions that the ZBA has to answer in order to be able to grant a variance. So here's a pictometry view of the property in question. It is there on Pheasant. I forget the name of the plat, but it's in an A-zoned area where a lot of the land fabric looks similar to this lot. As the applicant noted, the neighbor to the north received a variance for an extension of their uncovered porch, and that variance was granted. And let's see, they're up here, so that's the proximity. Going over to some of the information in the packet, with a dimensional variance, you are looking for, let me open this up. The first question that you have to answer is whether there's something exceptional or extraordinary about the property in question. And in this case, this property is not abnormally sized. It doesn't have steep topography. There's nothing too out of the ordinary there, but I do note that it is a little bit smaller in relation to some of the other lots in the neighborhood. Very roughly 85 square feet smaller than the mean of those lots. And then if you use kind of a median figure, because there are a couple of really large lots, it's actually quite a bit smaller than the median number. So It's smaller than some of the lots in the neighborhood, meaning that maybe there's less room to work with if you want to extend sideways onto your home. It is adequately sized in comparison with the A zoning district. So that one's a bit of a wash, and it might take some interpretation from the ZBA to dive into that exceptional or extraordinary circumstances question, see if there really is something unique about this lot that kind of necessitates that you build in a manner that puts you over the side lot line. With respect to preservation of rights, this is saying kind of twofold. One is, are they asking for something that is reasonably expected to have for a single family home? And they're asking for storage area, laundry room. Those are typical single family home items. I can buy that. You also might look to see if the request is consistent with other requests in terms of side yard setback leniency. And there are some cases where there have been variances granted, most notably the one to the north at 2132 Pheasant. There's also a 2-foot side yard setback encroachment variance granted at 2099 Lamont Court back in 2008. But by and large, you could also see the counterpoint that most of these lots function without any variances. They're able to still build out and enjoy their property without a side yard setback encroachment. So you kind of have to weigh those things as well, and I would ask you to look a little bit closer at the preservation of rights criterion. And then it gets easier from there in terms of positive findings, because I do think you can make a case that there's no detriment if pending review by especially our fire department to make sure that the 15-foot setback between the nearest point of that neighboring structure and the farthest point of this addition are far enough apart. And then additionally that there's no aesthetic or aesthetic concerns regarding this addition, that it's in character with the neighborhood. That's the kind of thing you can evaluate based on the architectural drawing, and I believe it's going to be consistent with what's on the home. There's some cultured stone in the rest of the home. The addition is more of a vinyl, so that's one thing you might ask about. But by and large, the detriment that you have with a setback variance is a safety one and an aesthetic one. And I think pending building official and fire official review, those are hurdles that can be jumped with an application like this. Keeping in mind that you're only looking at a 1-foot encroachment. You're not talking about something that's right on the property line or a full 10-foot encroachment. Finally, that this is not a general problem, so this wouldn't be more appropriately routed as an ordinance amendment through the ordinance committee. I think that's the case here. This is a unique request, and I don't think it would be appropriate to ask for a ordinance amendment to lessen side yard setback width. So I would encourage you, on its face, I have a hard time justifying the exceptional or extraordinary circumstance criterion, and the preservation of rights one is a little bit of interpretation on your part. And so without those being met, I don't think the variance should be granted, even though it's a very small encroachment. But if you can get through those hurdles, then I encourage you to talk through them and validate them, and then approval may be appropriate. So that's the way I would frame this up. Focus on exceptional circumstances and preservation of rights, and the rest will fall into place.
Okay,
It is a public hearing, so.
yep.
We need
So,
to open it.
yep,
Make a motion to open the hearing.
motion by Bob, supported by Tom. All in favor of open public hearing, say aye. Aye. Opposed? Hearing's open. Okay,
Okay, so what we're really looking at, Dan, is exceptional or extraordinary. The property itself is basically a very small lot, right, compared to the rest of them in the area.
I wouldn't say very, I'd say it's slightly smaller than the ones in the neighborhood.
Okay, we had some variances evidently in the neighborhood. Do we know what met the criteria there or not? We don't have anything on them?
I didn't include the minutes on those. I can get those if you want me to pull them up, but.
Oh, I just wondered if we had what it was,
Yeah,
what the finding was. I just,
Yeah, that's a good question. I don't have those on the top of my head. I do know the one to the north is a little deceiving because it's a bigger encroachment, but it's a smaller addition. It's just an uncovered porch. Then the one on Lamont actually looks pretty similar to this case. It was a 2-foot encroachment of an addition or a garage.
Okay.
Dan, could you put the aerial view back up? Yeah.
Maybe I can find Lamont here. Oh, I'll leave that up for now.
Got that porch that's to the north right there, that's on the house we're looking at?
Mm-hmm.
Right there? Is that what we're talking about? Okay.
Okay, is there anything the applicant would like to add? You
Oh.
state your name and,
Yes. My name is Michael Whitkin, architect. I'm working on behalf of the Blakesleys. And I just want to preface this discussion by stating that I really appreciate Dan Power's close analysis of the project. And he and I have been in contact and communicating and discussing various questions and answering them. As far as the exceptional circumstances are concerned, it is a smaller lot. We're not building a living space, as Dan pointed out. It's simply a garage extension. There's a precedent that has already been set in the neighborhood, as mentioned by Dan. Directly to the north, there has been a 4-foot encroachment, leaving 6 feet to the property line, and the other one in the neighborhood which has a 2-foot encroachment, and not dissimilar to what we are requesting. We are asking for merely 12 inches, which will leave 9 foot to the property line. Under the circumstances that a precedent has been already there, and there are no issues regarding exceptional circumstances, I mean, as far as contrary to that, the important thing is I believe that this will fit into the neighborhood harmoniously. We are using the same materials, the cultured stone on the sides of the garage door. We're using the same garage door. We're using the same trim and opening design. We're using the exact same materials. The roof is one contiguous element. There's no separation denoting an addition. It won't look like an addition. It will all be cohesive. I could go on, but I would just appreciate that you favorably consider this variance. Thank you.
do you have some type of a diagram or what it's going to look like?
Yes, I believe Dan has that a drawing, which is really a working drawing, so it really doesn't portray a picture of what it'll look like because it's very technical. I have a picture, which probably, as I say, a picture's worth 1,000 words. I have a picture of the existing house, which I can show you if you'd like me to pass it around. Essentially, this is the existing house and the existing garage opening. We are just extending the same roof line, so it's all one, as I said, one contiguous surface. At the same pitch, the same detail will be mimicked exactly. So it's really, this is what we're looking at, and just a continuation of that same design.
Mr. Whitkin, if you want to put it up on this
Oh, sure.
dais, we can have it on the overhead.
This is,
I'll get this, I'll get this situated. I will mention a couple of clarifying points. On the agenda that you have in your print packet, there's some crossed out numbers and some new numbers. So the actual interior dimensions of the existing garage and proposed addition are a little bit smaller than originally noticed, and that's something Mr. Whitkin provided additional information on. So that was important when we're talking about extending the garage area. We want to make sure that the garage is proportionate to the house, and so that's another zoning benchmark that we were looking for as this application was being completed. You can only have a 830-ish square foot garage for a 1,300 square foot house, and then it can increase proportionally beyond that, and we want to make sure those confinements are met, and that's why there was some fine tuning of the numbers, and we made sure we had the right ones on the agenda, so closer to a 529 square foot existing.
Yeah, I believe we're in full compliance with that information, and I provided Mr. Powell with that, those measurements and dimensions and square footage. So I do believe it completely complies with that.
Okay. Is there anyone else that'd like to address the,
I could say a few words.
Sure.
Might as well.
Sure.
This
Thank
is
you.
why I want a little bigger garage,
Your name
is
and address,
because
please.
I have, the boat is like 8'6" wide, and I could build a 12-foot garage, right, and be in compliance. But I want to be able to get an angle and put it in without having like this much on each side. You know, so that's why I'm kind of asking for the variance, you know, to go make a 12-foot door where I can get it in straighter and easier, pull it in and out. I just bought this boat for my retirement, and that's where I'm at on that. And then my wife, she had double hip surgery, and she really needs that upstairs laundry room. And it only really looks good if you put it right behind. There's a way in the kitchen, I don't know if he has the drawings, but there's a closet in the kitchen that will come out, and she can walk right in there, and it'll be right directly behind this garage. And it'd be great if we had the extra footage in there too, the extra 1 or 2 feet would be great. And I just thought I'd put my 2 cents in. And you know, thanks for listening to me.
Okay.
That's about all I have, but I just want to get the angle on that boat. I'm not going to get any younger, and to have a boat trying to get in on this much of each side or this much on each side is going to make a great difference to me. And I don't want to fix it with privacy fencing and stuff, you know, to hide the boat and have a gate. I would like to leave it there all year round. And for what it's worth,
Okay.
thank you very much.
How wide's the boat?
It's 8'6". I got a little wider one. I had that smaller one that was in the picture there, but I got a little wider one.
I saw it
It's like an
sitting in your yard.
18-footer crossliner, 18.8 to be exact, and it's like an 8-foot boat, and the extensions come out, you know, with the fenders on the trailer. It's 8'6", so 8.5 feet.
Okay.
And I could go with a 10-foot door, but man, that's awful hard to, you know, we have that little cement extension gonna come out and drive it up in there. I mean, it's gonna be a heck of an angle for me. And that's why I'm not just building it a little smaller. If I can do it, fine. But that's why I'm asking you tonight.
Okay.
So, thank you very much.
Okay. We do have a letter from, I guess, your neighbor, Michael Coster, 2132 Pheasant, that says concerning the application variance at 2118 Pheasant Avenue, because of the variance we received on our open porch is 6 foot from the property line. If the Blakesleys received a variance allowing their addition to be within 9 feet of the property line, that would leave only 15 feet between structures. Our concern is pushing the addition this close to the property line could be detrimental to the future sale of our home at 2132 Pheasant. Thank you for addressing our concerns. And that was the only response we had besides, yes, thinks it's detrimental.
Is that the property next door?
Mm-hmm. One old porch. So, okay, we will open up to the board for discussion at this point, and you may have to come up to answer some questions, but we'll. Sure. So.
I'll make a motion to close the public hearing.
Okay.
I'll second that motion.
Motion by Bob, second by Randy. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? So, public hearing is closed. Okay. Thank you, Bob.
Work together here. It keeps me straight most of the time.
I do have a question for the architect.
Okay.
Can you clarify if that encroachment, is that including the the overhang from the roof, or is that from the wall?
I have another picture here of the existing side elevation. We will be mimicking the same overhang, and it's on the drawing. It's about 18 inches. This is actually the side facing the property to the north, if you want to show this. Thank you. So the overhang is very minimal. As you can see on that little pop-out on the picture, and where the boat is parked right now. So I don't know if that answers your question, but it's really not obtrusive at all.
Right.
And we really want to continue the same overhang, the same soffit, the same fascia, so it's all one contiguous design.
So does the 12 inches that we're talking about, is that because of the overhang of the roof, or is the overhang 12 inches?
No,
more?
no, the overhang is over and above the 12 inches,
I
but
see.
it's not a problem for us to have a zero overhang
Right.
on that gable end. In fact, that's perfectly acceptable, so there would not be an overhang if you request that.
That's a good question. Might have ran out of red. You can only have four of these on at once, so.
Oh, here.
I don't know if you need to hear me, but overhangs are a question of interpretation. Over the years, I've understood, talking to the building official, we are comfortable interpreting from the wall. But it's a good question to ask, and it might soften the impact to that edge a little bit if you cut the overhang off.
Well, I think matching the house is probably preferable.
Yeah.
Just my
To
opinion.
look good, yeah. Yeah, I already got a piece of it sticking out there already, right? A portion. It's already on there, like the roof and everything, right? Not approaching, but it's not flat.
So, what are we gonna do with the driveway then? Are you making some kind
I'll
of a,
just flare it out a little. I mean, I won't go, you know, he might want to say exactly what he's got and written up, but what I want to do is come just straight from the driveway down and just flare it, where I can just flare it. And that's why I like the little bit extra width to the door. So, you know, it's hard, the trailer's like 24 feet. And you're gonna, you know, but the tongue will go in and fit in the garage, fine. But I'm gonna have to get a little angle and put it in. But just, you know, just one of those, like you see those little angles going like that and then fitting in. Just like that. It doesn't have to be cement all the way, you know, down. I mean, I can turn it, and if I come onto my grass a little bit, I come onto my grass a little bit. You know, it's not a big deal. But it'll just be a, you know, from the front door of that garage, just angle it like you see in all the other ones that I've looked at.
so, what I'm hearing is we could go smaller, but we just need a little more for
I think
comfort
it'll be
zone, is
really
what
hard,
we're-
I
what
think
we're
it'll be
talking.
really hard to get my boat in, you know, especially as you try to angle that from the street in there. I mean, if I go 10-foot door on an 8.6 boat, man, that's pretty tough.
Yeah.
It's pretty tough. And then to walk around, just to get around the boat, you know, shimmy around it, that would be tough too, really tough. And so.
Well, if we have a 10-foot door, the door doesn't take up the whole, how much more would you have inside if you had a 10-foot door?
Well, you'd probably have like this much wall.
Okay,
You know, the door can't just be the whole
right,
front.
that's why I was wondering how
I
much
mean, that's
room-
why I'm asking for it,
Okay.
you know? So I could do that. But, you know, I think that little 12-foot door would make it a lot easier for me.
The laundry room, okay, I want to talk a little bit about that. The egress to the laundry room is towards the backside of the house, correct?
Yeah, it'll be right behind it.
Be
It'll
right
just be
behind
right
it.
behind the garage even.
Okay, same roof line, same side lines and all that on it, correct?
Exactly.
Yep.
Okay.
I'm sorry,
He might know more.
I can have Dan put this on the screen. I think it will answer a lot of your concerns about the garage door and so on.
Chair?
Sorry, just took a gulp of coffee. Just took a gulp of coffee when he asked.
The total, thank you, that's perfect. The actual width of the total addition is 14 foot, 4.5 inches. And the 10-foot door, well, you can do the arithmetic, will leave you with 4 foot, 4.5 inches. Of course, that includes the outside thickness of the wall. So you'll have about a little under 2 feet on either side of the door. And it will match up with that earlier, the very first picture that Dan put up there of the cultured stone. So we'll have the same proportion. It's not, going to be thinner or wider, but it'll all match up as one continuous elevation. You can see on the drawing where the laundry is situated and the access into the existing house from the laundry. And so it's really not very obtrusive. It's all behind, and it's all in conformance with the existing elevations and materials.
Okay, thank you. Okay, helps a lot. Any other questions?
I have a question.
Sure.
It's for Dan.
Sure.
Dan, I was looking at some of the notes in here, and I'm wondering, since this was recalculated, does it go with the ordinance of the garage and accessory building limits, that addition? Is it the correct calculation now? So,
Yeah, that's a good question. And just one note, just a reminder, and for everybody new, if you could just hit that spacebar looking button in the middle of the microphone. I forgot to do the spiel about that. Oh, that's good. That's a good question, and we did figure, I think we worked our way backwards from what would be the maximum allowed based on that calculation, and they're allowed somewhere around 900 square feet, plus or minus 30 feet for the garage, the attached garage, and then there's the additional area doesn't really count against you in terms of that garage calculation, the laundry room portion, so they're okay on that.
and then the fire department would, also part of the minute, or the notes in there, would determine if that was the safe, because is it normally 15 feet?
Well, so that's a good question. I think 10 feet is sort of a magic number for fire separation. A lot of time they need a 3-hour wall or something along those lines. I'll want to check with the chief fire inspector. But you'll see, like in Chesterfield Heights, there's smaller lots where the separation is maybe 7 on one side and 8 on the other. So I'll run this past them, and of course, if there's an issue there, that would be a major condition that they'd have to get over, or maybe put a firewall up. But I think that's something we can work through.
Okay.
So Dan, I'm a little slow. So what is the exact dimensions for the side yard now? I mean, we're at 2 feet, or I've seen people go like this, and I just need to know, do we have exactly how many inches or feet or whatever the side yard is?
Yeah, it's a 9-foot side yard setback. Is that right? Instead of 10, so 1 foot encroachment.
So we're asking for a 1 foot variance.
That's right.
And I'm just thinking to myself here, if you were gonna use this garage for general storage of vehicles or anything else, you gotta put a good-sized pickup truck in there. How wide would you want that to open the doors to get in and out? Forget about the boat, I'm just talking about in general, okay? And I'm gonna make a deal for a boat, but if you had a 3/4 ton pickup and you drove it in there and you're gonna open it up to access to get out of the vehicle, the door's open on, how wide would you want it? I don't know, I'm just asking a question, okay? Other than a boat, okay, you're just gonna use it for a garage itself or storage or whatever you're gonna use it for. That's what I'm trying to think about, how wide would it have to be? So,
I'd want at least a 9 foot wide.
That's what I'm thinking. That's what I'm thinking, that he's get access in and out, at minimum, right. You know, I don't care if the boat's relevant to me, but whatever, you're gonna use it. And then you got the and then you have the laundry room on it. If you were just gonna stick up a fence or whatever, and be kinda, just put the laundry room on it, and be looking kinda weird just sticking out with the laundry room on it. And they wanna put it in there for his wife to use. Would not be a, nice smooth line of the house, for sure.
Where's the laundry room located at this time?
It's in the basement.
Right.
She's having trouble getting up and down the stairs.
Right.
We want to stay here.
So and that's gonna be the same height as the main level then?
Yeah,
There's
it's
no
all
steps
gonna be
into
the
that?
same,
It's
it's gonna fit
So
beautiful.
then are we gonna step up from the garage into the laundry room?
No, it'll just go
Oh,
right
the
in,
same.
Okay.
Perfect.
and, it'll go right through a kitchen closet that we have when you come in
Right.
the door.
See
So it's
that.
gonna be beautiful right behind there.
Right. So then what does that line up with, the floor of the third stall lines up with what in the two-stall garage? So
She's actually gonna gain a couple of feet of just getting in.
No,
because
but I
the
mean
two-
the floor of the third stall garage. It's the same house as the same level as the house, right?
Yeah,
What level is the two-stall garage at?
I can answer that for you.
Yes, sir.
The existing garage, if you look at the, on the screen, we're keeping the wall, we're maintaining the wall between the proposed garage and the existing garage. That existing exterior wall is going to remain. There is a doorway, as you can see on the drawing, that connects the two garages together, and there will be a step there.
Okay,
Yeah.
okay, got it.
but
Thank
as
you.
far as in the laundry room, you won't go from the garage to the laundry room. It'll go right in the kitchen, it'll flat.
Right, but this shows a door from the laundry room into the third stall garage. There'll be a
That's
step.
not gonna happen.
That's not gonna happen?
No.
Oh, okay.
No,
All
that's
right,
not-
well, that's what I was asking, okay.
No,
Good.
that will not be.
I said
Okay,
there's no way that was gonna happen.
Okay.
No.
You
They'll be
don't
two
want him coming in
separate.
the laundry room with his,
No, I'm
with
not
his
gonna.
fish or whatever?
No,
No.
He can't clean fish in there?
no.
All right. I don't blame you, I don't. Great, thank you.
Roger, you got anything?
I don't have a problem. I think it's a small lot, and there's been at least two other variances in the neighborhood that were greater than this.
Yeah, I think for sight lines of the house and small lot like Roger's saying, and just a general use. You know, I don't care if you're parking a boat in there, you're parking a pickup truck in there. I think it needs to have that, you know?
Your standard parking space in a parking lot is 9 feet wide.
9 feet, that's what, yeah,
You know what it's
exactly.
like trying to get out of a pickup truck.
Exactly.
If you got a wall or another
Yeah.
vehicle right there,
Yeah, right.
you can't get the doors
Just,
all the way.
yeah, just for general use in general.
Just for general use and to
Yeah.
be able to walk by.
Yeah,
And if you've got somebody getting in on both sides,
yeah,
that's the problem I have in my garage right now. I pull in and I get out in the middle of the garage because I'm this far from the wall on the other.
okay. Is that a motion, Roger? Huh?
Sound like a motion.
Sound like a motion?
Just a reminder, whoever does the motion, if you could turn your mic
Yep.
on.
Okay. The only thing I'd like to add to is like what Dan says, he needs needs to have the site, actual print where it's gonna be. Is that what you want? And,
Overhang.
I don't think I want to worry about the overhang myself. I don't want to touch that, 'cause it's, you know,
We want to overhang, we don't want a skin rink on that thing.
all right.
You want the fire station?
Yeah, the fire chief or the fire department to look at it for the access part of it.
Attached to building.
Yeah. And because I don't know how close they gotta be for firewalls and stuff. I don't know what that's all about, so that has to be all addressed with them, so.
Are you
I
making
don't
a
know.
motion?
I just wanted to add that to Roger's motion, okay? If that's acceptable to Roger, okay?
Okay, we have a motion by Roger.
I assume he's supporting it if he's adding.
I'll support it.
And if there's no deliberation, I think what the motion means is that we're defaulting to agreeing with the findings on the 4 criteria. That's just kind of
Yes.
Yeah, the preservation of rights is
teachable
another
moment
thing in the neighborhood's similar to it, so it's same preservation of rights, I think, in the area.
for the application, there you go.
Yeah.
So we always want to make sure when we're making a motion on a variance that we're referring back to those 4 findings of fact,
Yep.
exceptional or extraordinary circumstances.
Except,
preservation of
the
rights.
exceptional or extraordinary circumstances, we are modifying to what we feel,
Yeah,
yes. Okay.
no detriment and
Okay.
not a general problem. Yep.
Okay, motion by Roger, supported by Bob. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Okay, it's passed.
Thank you very much.
We
With
need
those
your-
with those conditions
Yep.
that I alluded to. Okay, all right, okay, all right, all
And
right.
we need a signature up here with,
Yep.
Mine?
yep.
Yeah, we need a signature here, Roger, his hand in there, right here. Yep, yep.
She's the one that's on it.
All
Thank you very much. It's hard for me to get up and down the steps.
I think you're really gonna like that laundry room.
Yeah,
There you
I think she will. I think I'll like it, 'cause I go down a lot.
Yeah.
I go down to do it. Thank you very much.
You betcha.
It's just gonna be a lot easier to get that going. I hated, I thought about it already.
I know what you want to use it for,
This
but
isn't gonna get better.
for our further use, for our use down the road, we can't do it for the boat, we gotta do it for in general, so I had to tweak it around a little bit.
I got a big
All right.
truck too. Yeah.
All right, there you go. All right.
You're welcome.
All right.
That's the only thing for me. And now they
It was so disorganized, I had too much.
You know,
You
that's
gave me all these loose,
kind of a bummer, ain't it, huh?
yeah, I'm starting reading from a different,
Here you go, sir.
well, I got this one right here now.
Okay. Now, this one, you can have this one, and right on the back is the reasons and grounds right there. Okay?
All right.
Whichever's easy for you. Whatever
Yeah,
you
I'll
wanna
use
do.
this one, it's,
Whatever you want to do, there it is,
yeah,
okay?
thank you.
All right.
Okay. Is the applicant for 3050 Fruit Ridge Avenue here? All righty. Applicant Jason Barris, on behalf of owner Stars Real Estate LLC, seeks a dimensional variance to remove an existing pylon sign and replace it with a pylon sign with a total area of 108 square feet and a total height of up to 26 foot. This is contrary to section 94-410C3 and 94-410C4 of the Walker zoning ordinance, which limits new pylon signs to an overall height of 20 foot and a total area of 80 square feet. The subject property is located at 3050 Fruit Ridge Avenue and is zone C4 outdoor commercial. Okay, we'll go into the circumstance. Exceptional and extraordinary circumstances. There are exceptional or ordinary circumstances or conditions applying to the property in question as to the intended use of the property that do not apply generally to other properties in the same district. The applicant's response was the site lot area, 112,947 square feet, is significantly larger than the median 46,072 square feet lot area for occupied C4 lots in Walker. They purchased the lot to the north and combined the two lots into one. Also the existing sign is in the MDOT role and has to be relocated within our property lines. Preservation of rights. That such variance is necessary for preservation and enjoyment of substantial property similar to that possessed by other properties in the same zoning district and in the vicinity. The possibility of increased financial return shall not in of itself be deemed sufficient to warrant a variance. The applicant's response was 13 out of 19 other C4 zone lots in Walker have pylon signs. 9 out of 13 of these lots, pylon signs have a larger area and or height than section 94-410 currently allows. By combining the two lots, there will be less signage in the area than if it was still two separate businesses. No detriment. Authorizing such a variance will not be a substantial detriment to adjacent property and will not materially impair the intent and purpose of this chapter or the public interest. Applicant's response was, the sign is proportionate to our use. The sign area is about 1% of the lot area as compared to the mean ratio of pylon signs being about 3% of the lot area. We will relocate the existing sign out of the MDOT right-of-way and can consider removing the highway sign also. Not a general problem. That condition or situation of a piece of property, intended use of such property for which the variance is sought is not a general or recurrent nature as to make reasonably practical the formulation of a general regulation for such condition or situation. The applicant's response was, based on the history of land use and sign approvals, this type of signage is consistent and specific to our use and like other businesses. Okay. Having said that, Dan, do you have any comments?
I do. So if anybody has taken I-96 from downtown and gotten off on Fruit Ridge and turned in towards City Hall, you know what this site is. It's the AGO Citgo gas station that's being rebuilt right at that intersection. So that orients you to the site. None of the imagery shows up yet, so I don't have much to show you other than some pictures I took in the packet, but hopefully you know where I'm talking about. A couple of years ago, I think the ZBA turned down a use variance at the same location, and now this owner has absorbed the property at 3050 and the one next door at 3080 and is expanding this gas station onto both sites, and that's been reviewed.
Does that go right out onto Dykster Drive there then?
It will.
Yeah, yeah.
So it's a big expansion, and that's a good access management improvement.
Drainage and
For
everything.
the area, that's right. So there's a lot happening there that's already been reviewed at a formal level, and our goal tonight is just to focus on this dimensional variance that has the same format as what you just talked about with the house on Pheasant Street. It's still getting down to stretching something beyond the limits, spatial limits that are set in the zoning ordinance. In this case, it's a pylon sign. The reason for this is there's an existing pylon sign that the owner would like to refresh and shape up, and most importantly has to relocate because it's actually found to be in the MDOT right-of-way, which I'm not sure was known at the time it was built, when it was built. But the fact is that through the Planning Commission review process, we realized that MDOT actually has right-of-way on this stretch of Fruit Ridge Avenue, and it's a 75-foot right-of-way, as you see in this image here, and the sign is now in that right-of-way and needs to be relocated. So what's being proposed to be built is about 108 square feet as opposed to the limit of 80 and 26 feet tall. And there's some other signage on the site, but this is the only new signage that stretches beyond what the ordinance allows. So I'll walk through the same findings, and these ones are pretty straightforward. From my standpoint, there's a lot behind this request, and I can support a lot of it. You'll notice my analysis is pretty similar to the applicant's analysis on some of this, because I think I was trying to help him understand whether it would be feasible to take an application of the ZBA, and in doing so I did some research, and I think you reflected some of that research in what you wrote. So I'll say some of the same stuff he did, which as far as exceptional or extraordinary circumstances, you're only looking at half of the property here. This property is actually absorbed a lot to the north as well. So it's a relatively large lot for this zoning district. So you might think of how signage is proportional to how big the lot is in terms of the kind of the scale of the lot. You don't want a 300 square foot pylon McDonald's sign at a store that's only an acre, something like that. So you think about proportionality of signage and not having too much visual clutter. I think that makes it important to think about whether this lot is exceptionally big or big enough to have a sign that's bigger than is permitted. The other thing that's the elephant in the room here is that if they didn't have this MDOT easement in place, then they'd be allowed to leave that non-conforming sign in place, which is also larger than permitted and taller than permitted. So in that sense, this 75-foot, not consumers, MDOT easement is a bit of an exceptional circumstance of the property. So I think they meet the exceptional circumstances quite well. I'm gonna make you dizzy one more time. I apologize, just don't look at the screen. Gonna go past the application, and then into preservation of rights. Here's where I find that, depending on how you look at this application, you can look at the existing condition and the proposed condition, and there are a lot of sites with pylon signage in this zoning district, and I don't have this broken down the same way on this table, so I'm going to look at my report, but there's a reference to the comments in the application that the proposed sign area is about 0.1% of the lot area, and that's kind of a goofy metric, but that's a good way of saying the signage that we're putting up is proportional to the lot area that we have. In comparison with other lots in this zoning district, in C4 zoning, there are actually quite a few pylon signs that are over that 80 square foot mark, and the average ratio of sign area to lot area is about 0.3. And the hypothetical, if you use the 80 square foot maximum on the minimum size C4 lot, is about 0.2. Now, if you do count the existing signage that they have, you have to include that there's a pylon sign in the back of the site, and that's something I want to talk about. And that actually ticks their number up a little bit. But if you just to talk about this pylon sign, even though it's larger than is permitted, it's actually small in relation to the other pylon signs that other C4 lots have in the area, and in terms of both the size and the proportion of those sites. So in that sense, that you're talking about rights that are shared by other properties. 9 of the 13 C4 zone lots that have pylon signs are areas greater than permitted. And then kind of my last comments bled into this next criterion, which is the no detriment. Again, I think you can think of the scale of this signage and the fact that it's somewhat proportional to the property, and also that you are taking a visual nuisance and a thing that's sort of cluttering up the right-of-way and moving it off of the right-of-way. And so I got these mixed up. You're actually increasing the safety of the site if you have this sign relocated, even though it is larger than permitted. And by the way, there was another pylon sign that's now pavement that was removed as part of this application. So there's a considerable amount of pylon signage that has been removed. I will talk about one more, which is that technically we need to have that, which you don't even know it's there unless you're approaching in the winter toward the site on I-96 going west. There's almost looks like an off-site sign, but it's actually connected to this property by kind of a flag strip of land. That one is additional signage that ticks up that overall sign area, technically adds clutter in terms of signage to the area, and really would require another variance if they wanted to keep that one up, because it's too, you're building a second pylon sign in addition to that one still staying up. So I do have as a condition that that other sign should come down, and that will help with this no detriment finding, that you're really overall reducing the clutter of the site. And so whether that's addressed now or just prior to the occupancy of the site, that can be handled separately. But I do want to mention that the full extent of this being an improvement should come with the reduction of that sign and removal of that sign. My final comment on general problem is this is not a request we get often, and there have been some new pylon signs granted that fall into compliance, whether it's this zoning district or one of the other commercial zone districts. We're able to work people toward compliance, and I don't see a reason to have pylon signs be allowed to be any larger than 80 square foot as a general rule. So this is a unique request. So I do think all 4 criteria are met, subject to some conditions that I recommend, which include that the what looks like a billboard off-site should be removed. I do recommend that, and that the other applicable requirements of sign regulations should be met. So you still need to meet wind loading. There should still be an address on this pylon sign, and the other signs on the canopy of the gas station should fall under the limit, which is 80 square feet. And we've worked through most of those items, if not all of them. The one that I think we didn't talk about recently, but we've talked about before, is flag lot rear sign in the back. But I recommend that you can meet all these criteria as long as you talk through them and justify them. And then if you do meet them all, the variance can be granted.
That flag lot, that's a separate parcel?
It's actually the same parcel. That's what makes it tricky. So it's connected even though it looks like it's not. I'm not sure how that acquisition happened.
It came with the original front lot, the 3050, and it's like a thin 3-foot strip, literally all the way back along the highway right away to that piece that opens up. And I don't, that piece could be 100 by 100 or something like that. It's not very big.
Yeah.
Even to access it, we got to go off like a 2-track.
Oh, okay.
Had that been brought up to the owner, possibly removing that?
I know when we went through planning commission a year and a half ago, we talked about it a little bit more at that time. So I'll open it up, let the applicant
Yeah.
speak to that as well, because I know it's sort of a separate issue. But
Okay. If you could get your
then
name and,
there's a
Yep.
hearing, if you want to open public hearing. Did you
Motion.
I'll
already-
make a motion.
Oh, second?
okay,
Or-
motion by Bob, second by Tom.
Yeah.
All in favor of open public hearing, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All opposed? Hearing's open.
Okay, so my name is Jason Barris. I'm the owner and member of Stars Real Estate, American Gas and Oil. So, yeah, me and Dan have talked quite a bit on this signage, and he's helped me. He's been very helpful for the whole project as a whole and stuff. So this is kind of our last little bit, and a few other things like he was kind of touching base. Prior to us tearing the old building down, just on the original piece, we had, if you count the sign in the back, just over 240 total square feet, and that's counting the existing sign that's there right now. So if you get off the highway, you see the old sign. It still says help wanted and Bud Light 24 packs, or so that's the original sign. That's the one that's in the right of way. The other sign, there's a other diesel sign across the drive, kind of by where the ditch is. That came down, and then this sign in the back is roughly 100 square feet. We call it a high rise. So my goal is, based on the the size of the lot, like we discussed, purchasing the other lot, because technically it's is what it is. We combine the parcels, but if it was never combined, we could have had 80 square feet and could have put the lot next to us could have had 80 square feet. You could have had 160 square feet just in that. So my biggest goal is, it was a long story and a long road getting to where it is right now, but we're close. I think this will be kind of the icing on the cake to kind of get a nice looking sign to finish it off. It is pretty generic, if you look at the proposed sign, we really got to have, I'm kind of held accountable by the brand. I got to have their brand. I'd like to have my brand, and obviously the prices. So I'm not, we're going to have tons of other products there. I'm not trying to cram a bunch of stuff in there. We're trying to get away from reader boards and stuff like that with all the little numbers. We want everything nice and clean. And so I'm trying not to make it too busy. That is the standard sign system. They come in 7 foots, 6 foots. So the sign system that's up there right now is actually a 7-foot system. So I'm going down to a 6-foot system. So all those dimensions kind of, it's all kind of standard. The height variance, I think talking with Dan, I'm required to have 8 feet. So I'm good with that. That pushes me over, but then if I try to go under, I could shorten that up because it's off to the side. It's not in the turning right away, or, it doesn't block traffic, but then I think I need a variance to go below the 8 feet. So, I guess it's kind of a trade-off on that side of things. So basically, Dan hit all the points. We got pretty considerable size piece of property now. I'm biased, but I think it's going to be a big improvement from what was there, and stuff. And we're literally, we are concrete and covering everything. So where this sign is located, we did run into a little snafu when we originally started doing all this. We had the property surveyed, never knew about the 75 feet until the surveyors did that. So that kind of threw us a curveball, and it kind of played my card with Dan of trying to keep it there. So that kind of put my back up against the wall a little bit. So we just want to slide it back. Obviously, all the visibility is, coming over the bridge and stuff like that. I think when it's all said and done, it'll be smaller than what you see there. It'll be smaller in proportion to the size of the canopy and the building. I mean, everything else there seems to be pretty good size. So, I mean, I think this thing will look even smaller once it's up and stuff like that. So,
Is that a double 75-foot right away?
That's 75 to the center line of Fruit Ridge, I think.
So it's actually 150 foot?
Yeah, I think so. I think it's kind of curving around what you see on an interstate, and I think MDOT owns up to, maybe up to the,
It was always like that. Is that something that maybe changed when they were talking about redoing that bridge across the expressway?
that could have been part of it. I know it came up in the survey work for the
Maybe
redevelopment
state
project.
came in and confiscated some property?
I don't know.
we researched it because I didn't believe it. Somebody signed a paper back in like the early 70s. It was one of those things where I don't know what somebody was thinking to do that. And back in the 70s, I think, I don't even know if the highway went through there. It was, maybe it was a 2-lane road or something.
It's not like Fruit Ridge is a state highway.
Might have been, was it the old 37 before Alpine, or
No.
it goes way back before? Okay.
Yeah,
No.
it went way back. It was a weird deal.
Not unless they had anticipated putting an expressway up through there at one time. Instead, they ended up going up 31, making that expressway.
Yeah.
They were looking at, I think they were looking at 31, 37, and 131 back in the 70s for expressways north and south.
Yeah.
That may have been when they changed that.
Yeah, it goes way back.
They never did it.
Yeah. Kind of a bum deal, but.
What's the current height of the sign there now? I'm just curious.
What's that?
What's the current height of the sign?
Okay, so the current height right now is, I think it's like roughly somewhere between 26 and 28 feet. So it's just over what I'm proposing by a foot or two. And the current sign is 100, just that sign that's up there right now is 126 square feet. So I'm kind of trying to split the difference.
Well, how far back are you moving it from that existing?
So, yeah, we're going into the parking lot, so it's probably getting moved back 25 feet, I'm guessing.
Sorry, don't look.
Yeah,
So you're actually downsizing the size from what you have now?
yeah. So if we're allowed 80, I'm asking for 106 or 108. And right now it's 126.
I went by there a day and looked at it, I thought, that's pretty good size in itself. And
It's closer to the road, it's a little bit higher, like you asked about the overall height. It might be a couple feet, but then it's also, there's a little bit of an uphill grade. So that sign, if you had the two, it could be, even though overall from the ground it's a couple feet, it could be 4 or 5 feet by the time it gets in its new location, so.
I mean, I thought you could use more height, but I don't know what that means.
Yeah, no, I'm with you. No, it's really, that's, like I said, it's all standard sizes. I'm going off the 8-foot clearance and,
Just like,
yeah.
Are you fine with removing that existing pylon?
Yeah, in the back, to be honest with you, you can't see it. It's kind of like my olive branch, I guess, to throw it out there to ask. And, if I had to go to 80 square feet, and I'll be honest, Dan and I had this conversation. I'm like, I'll come in, I'll do this I'll take it down if I can have this, but if they say no and I have to go 80 square feet, I'll keep it there. So I don't, I lost a lot when the 75 feet came out, so that was my last thing I had. So, but the hardest thing about getting to that sign probably is you know, it's all, like I said, we gotta use that two-track that was off of then the Dykstra. We'd have to probably make a road to get it down, but we'll figure out. We figured out how to move the ditch. We'll figure out how to get the sign down. Yeah, thank you. Yeah, thank you. Yeah, thanks.
Okay, anything else you'd like to add?
No, if you guys got any more questions, let me know.
Okay, all
I'll sit
right.
down.
Motion to close the hearing?
I'll make a motion to close the hearing.
Motion by Tom,
Second.
second by Randy. Second by Randy. All in favor of closing the hearing, say aye.
Aye.
Aye, opposed? Hearing's closed. Okay.
Well, I can make a motion to approve this based on, yeah, I'll make a motion to approve this based on the application. I guess with a couple conditions, that we'd like the existing pylon sign, the remote rear to be, of the site to be removed. And, that the proposed sign package will meet all other requirements of the article, what is that? 14 of the Walker zoning ordinance.
Motion by Randy, second by Rose.
Who seconded it?
Rose. Anything you'd like to add, Dan? Does that cover? Okay. Okay, with that motion, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, it's passed.
Gotta have a signature here, Roger.
Yep.
Okay. Easy breezy, all done, right?
Two, didn't you? No deliberation, just
Bang, bang, yeah, there you go.
no deliberation, you just go
20 minutes ago, you're 20 minutes over.
Hey, watching baseball?
No, are you kidding me?
Nah,
Yeah,
you'd be one of the three people watching it.
yeah.
You see the stands lately?
Oh, my goodness, yeah.
I don't
I don't either.
even have time to sleep.
Sorry, I think you're probably used to do the. Oh, you got it. All right. Yes, I'm gonna finish that up. Or.
Deposit this.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, when you open it?
Week of the 14th, so it's getting close.
Okay.
Weather permitting,
Right.
it's getting close.
Looks really nice.
Yeah, thank you. Big difference, right?
Yeah, very big.
Hope you make lots of money.
Thank you.
Tennis wheel. Anything coming up, Dan?
No meetings on the horizon. There's nothing scheduled. I haven't had any new applications lately. There's always people throwing stuff at the wall, and usually it doesn't stick, so you don't see it, but keep you posted. So October is clear of meetings, and we'll see about the holiday season. And stay tuned to the master plan process too. You're all integral people in the community, and we want to make sure you're part of that. So we've had our 4 neighborhood open house meetings for the kind of the Alpine, South Walker, Standale, and Northwest Walker. All those meetings are done, but we're still taking feedback, and there's still a website out there, and we'll have an open house probably November 6th. We'll confirm that date and invite you all to the open house for the master plan.
Do we know what's going on over here off of west of Wilson?
West of Wilson?
Yeah, it looks like they're clear cutting like 20 acres.
Oh, Richmond
North
near.
of Richmond there.
So I heard about 100 trees, and if it's more than that, we should check it out. But we got calls about that the day the chainsaws were out. Of course, that's how things work. But we don't have a clear cutting ordinance in Walker. So if you, on the one hand, it's kind of a chicken or egg situation. If you have a pending application for a certain type of development, kind of once your foot's in the door, you can't just clear. You have to wait till you're through the development review process. But if you just own property that you might farm in the future, or you might want to market part of it a certain way, we don't have anything really prohibiting that, except if you disturb more than an acre and tear up more than an acre's worth of roots, then you need a soil erosion permit. From what we've seen so far, nobody's tearing up the roots, and they claim they're logging
They're not
about
just
100
gonna leave the
trees.
stumps though.
Well-
They're clear cutting almost 20 acres.
Yeah, and it's clear, I'll take a drive-by on the way out. My understanding is it
They
was more
probably farmed
selective
it-
than that.
They
so
probably
I'll-
farmed it out some tree
Just
outfit.
wondering
You
if
know,
either
what's been going on.
whoever's
It's
selling
called clear
it
cut.
is taking the lumber off of it,
Yeah.
and then they're gonna sell it.
Yeah, that's
Well,
a
yeah.
possibility, and we're working through something with the ordinance committee right now to restrict that kind of thing, to say if you're gonna clear, non-junk trees more than maybe an acre an area, let's make sure that you are part of have some formal review done.
I
Maybe
think
it's,
that's a Van Port fleet that owns that.
it used to be, and I think
It
they
used to
sold
be?
it.
To a lumber company.
No, maybe it is,
Yeah, clear cut.
well, I know it's sold, I don't know if it's, maybe Port Fleet's the former owner or
I think they owned it, maybe
Somebody
they
on the
sold
radio,
it,
bro.
could be,
and whoever bought it is,
yeah, it's a,
that's why I was wondering if you knew of any potential
yeah, I
development.
knew the name and I forget the name. But,
Any potential development going in up there.
well, we could take another look at it. If it is truly clear cutting, it's more than we thought it was. So we'll have Megan, our code enforcement specialist, take another look. You never like to see that.
No, absolutely not.
Either.
So. Okay, motion to adjourn?
Make a motion to adjourn.
Roger, second? Second by Tom. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye, oh yeah.
Adjourned.
Okay, thanks. And also, Andrea Hendrick, who was here for maybe 8 months worth of meetings, she has left. She's got her own, she has her own business, and things kind of moved a certain way for her, so we are thankful for the time she had here, but
You worked her
she's-
too hard, didn't you?
I don't know what that means. It's all relative to me. I don't know, but I think she's doing her own thing, and we're proud, but we're now looking for somebody who's more of an administrative planning assistant role to fill that role. But in the future, it may just be me here at these meetings to kind of relieve that night burden for the other person. So just me, yeah.
No burden there, huh?
No, yeah.
You want me to take notes? You want me to take notes there?